We often hear that the future of mass surveillance is something we're just kind of stumbling into, almost by accident. But what if it's not an accident at all? In this explainer, we're going to dig into a pretty chilling idea from our source material, the claim that there's already a blueprint for a digital cage, and it's being built all around us right now.
It's a scary thought, isn't it? That we're all just sleepwalking into building our own prison. But the sources we're looking at today suggest something way more deliberate. They argue that a blueprint isn't just possible, it's already taking shape, hidden in the very technologies and policies we see every single day.
So, what do they mean by a digital cage? Well, think of it like a trap with three walls. The first wall, surveillance tech everywhere you look. The second wall is built from these really complicated algorithms, so-called black boxes, that make decisions about our lives, and we have no way to question them. And that third wall, a shocking lack of laws to protect us from the first two. That's the system we're being warned about. Right, so every blueprint needs a testing ground, a place to work out all the bugs before you go big. According to our sources, the testing ground for this digital cage has a very specific and very troubling name. They call it the laboratory of the poor. And here's where the core argument gets really unsettling. These incredibly powerful new technologies, they aren't rolled out equally across society. The idea is that they're pioneered and tested first on very specific communities, usually the ones with the least amount of power to fight back. And the sources are incredibly specific about these testing grounds. They call them low-rights environments. Think places like federally funded public housing, welfare offices, or neighborhoods that are already heavily policed. The logic, as cynical as it sounds, is pretty simple. In these places, there's less political power, less media attention, and because of that, a whole lot less accountability when things go wrong. And this right here is the critical takeaway. The whole argument is that these technologies won't stay in one place. This quote from the source material just says it all. They serve as a blueprint, basically a trial run, for a system that could eventually, and they argue will eventually, be expanded to everyone. Okay, so let's look at how this actually plays out. We all kind of assume that government agencies have protections in place, right? But our sources point to the Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. They found that HUD doesn't actually track how its own grant money is used for facial recognition. What that means is that federal taxpayer money can be used to buy invasive surveillance for public housing, with literally no specific rules in place to protect the residents. It's a huge regulatory blind spot, and it's how the blueprint starts to become reality. So, the blueprint gets drafted in the laboratory of the poor. But how is the cage itself actually built? Well, the sources point to what they call an invisible architecture. It's not made of steel or concrete, but of code and private contracts that are quietly taking the place of our laws. Our sources lay out this pretty stunning four-step process for how this happens. First, it starts with a legal void. There are no specific laws to limit how the government can use AI. Second, our existing laws, like the Fourth Amendment, are just too old. They haven't caught up. This creates a vacuum. And guess who steps into that vacuum? Government agencies who start making private deals with tech companies. The result? These private contracts, which are negotiated behind closed doors, basically become the new law of the land when it comes to surveillance. A key piece of this architecture is something called black box AI. Just imagine the government using a system where the internal logic is a complete secret, even to them. That's what's happening. This creates the perfect shield for accountability. If some automated decision ruins a person's life, who's to blame? Well, they'll say it's not the human operator, it was the mysterious black box. The sources call this powerful tactic technological mystification. And it gets even more insidious. There's this related concept called math washing. This is basically where you take old-fashioned human bias and you disguise it as neutral, objective math. The argument becomes, oh, the algorithm isn't biased, it's just objective data. This makes discrimination incredibly hard to spot and even harder to fight in court. So you're probably asking, who's supposed to stop all this? In theory, it's this new role in government, the Chief AI Officer, or CAIO. They are supposed to be the guardians of ethical AI, but our sources reveal a critical loophole in their job description, one that can turn these supposed guardians into the gatekeepers of the cage. See, on one hand, their official duties are exactly what you'd hope for: mitigate bias, make sure there's testing, promote transparency. But here's the catch. They also have a special authority, the power to waive all of those safety rules. And the justification? All they have to do is cite mission-critical operations or national security. It is a built-in fundamental conflict of interest. And just so you don't think this is some theoretical worry, it's not. This waiver authority is written in black and white into a major federal policy document, the 2024 guidance from the Office of Management and Budget. The loophole is real, and it's official policy. All right, so let's put it all together. We've got the testing grounds, the invisible architecture, and the official gatekeepers with a loophole. Where does this all lead? Well, our sources point to a truly chilling potential endgame, a concept known as the dead internet theory, which tries to give us a view from inside the cage. The dead internet theory basically says that the internet you think you're using, a place for real people to connect, is already gone. In its place is a facade, an elaborate stage set filled with AI-generated content designed not to connect us, but to control what we think and what we do. And this isn't just some fringe theory cooked up on a message board. It's fueled by real data. According to our sources, nearly half of all internet traffic right now, 49%, is not human. It's automated bots. Just think about that for a second. We are already on the verge of being outnumbered online. This isn't science fiction. That's a statistic from today.
So, if this theory is even partially right, the whole purpose of the internet has been flipped on its head. It stops being a tool for connection, and it becomes a weapon for control. To replace real human conversation with AI slop, to manipulate our feeds and what we see in search results, and ultimately to censor dissent by controlling the very reality we see online.
So the picture that our sources lay out is, well, it's pretty disturbing. You've got the testing grounds, the secret contracts, the black box algorithms, the official loopholes. They argue this isn't just a series of random accidents, but a coherent blueprint. And that leaves all of us with one final critical question to think about. The blueprint exists. What gets built next?